Hello. How are you guys doing? This is my fourth take, and this time I'm recording straight from YouTube instead of trying to go through the Angel utility because it is not working. Please bear with me. I get a little frustrated after about the third or fourth try. Okay. For Chapter 10, like I mentioned, Chapter 10 is the only chapter in our textbook that deals with the topic of maltreatment of children. Basically, maltreatment means the same thing as child abuse and neglect. It's just a fancier word, I guess. We have 3 course competencies, or if you want to call them standards, but the Technical College System of Georgia calls them course competencies. It's the same thing as standards. Anyway, there are 3, and the first one is identify symptoms of abuse and neglect. And I'm trying to put my cue card up here, but I can't see it like we talked about tonight. Yes, I am recording straight late after class, but it's on my mind and I can't sleep, so I'm just getting it done. Okay, first of all, children that have developmental disabilities are the ones that often suffer abuse and neglect. And I would like for you all to refer to the figure on page 271. It's 10-1, I believe. It's a pie graph, circle graph, whichever one you want to call it, pie chart. It's circular. It shows reported abuse and neglect by category. And there are several categories. Physical abuse is one, emotional and verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, and then this last one is one that not all states recognize, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit, emotional or psychological neglect. That one's a little bit harder to prove. But those are the categories, and the pie chart shows the amounts of reports in each of those categories. Although I left my book in the car after class, and I'm just remembering that graphic, so hopefully I'm telling you right. Okay. Number 2, as far as our course competencies, is describe the protocol for reporting abuse and neglect. And Public Law 93-247 deals with that topic. There are reporting laws. They're listed on page 279, 280, and 281. Teachers are mandated reporters. Early childhood care personnel, teachers in general, social workers, law enforcement workers, healthcare workers, clergy, and any person with reason to suspect that a child is being injured by physical, emotional, or sexual abuse or neglect. Anybody is mandated to report. That means in a public school setting, I would go, first of all, to, we have, well, I'm not there now, but when I was there, they have school counselors, and there's a school nurse. Those people usually are first contact people because a lot of times the child has to be examined, so that's where you involve the school nurse. And in a daycare setting, I don't know that you would have that type of person on staff, but you would go to the center director. When I worked for 9th District Opportunity, the center director would be the person that I would go to and say, hey, you know, I suspect this child has been abused and this is why, and talk about what I'm seeing. And then there are reports that have to be filled out, and our rules for child care learning centers, the big document that we have referred to so much, has the procedures for preschools, any preschool child care that abides by those rules. They have those, that's in that document, so we will look carefully in class next week at what that a particular document says about the rules for reporting child abuse. And then in a public school setting, there are rules. They're basically the same. And of course, each state has the ability to handle things differently, and some states, will. But we need to focus on what Georgia, what their reporting rules are. So that's what our focus is going to be on. Our third competency, we will be discussing the techniques for working with abused and neglected children, and pages 278, 279, and 282 in the textbook are good places that give us ideas for techniques and strategies for working with children that have been in these situations. There's a chart, a very good chart, 10-3 at the bottom of 278. Please take a look at these things, guys. Get that textbook, get those pages rolling. I know I talked to y'all about MindTap, and yes, MindTap does give us an audio, not just an audio, but the actual textbook is available in MindTap. But there's a lot more things we can do with MindTap, and I am hopefully going to be implementing that some in the classroom. But this is the first semester that MindTap has been available for this textbook, so I'm having to learn it too. Okay, our textbook calls it maltreatment. So what is maltreatment? Any situation in which a child is not safe in their environment because of injury inflicted on them by their caretaker or caretakers, exposure to hazardous conditions resulting from protection that is not adequate, exploitation, and withholding medical treatment. Those are all situations that fall under the category of maltreatment. The history. Let's go back and do some history about child abuse and neglect. Dr. C. Henry Kemp, and this is in the textbook, right out of the textbook, guys, studies various aspects of child abuse and introduced the phrase battered child syndrome in 1961 at a conference in which he organized to address the maltreatment of children. The passage of Public Law 93-247 and the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, or CAPTA, CAPTA, was passed on January 31st of 1972, creating the National Center on Child Abuse and Neglect. This required individual states to establish a central agency with legal authority to investigate and prosecute incidences of abuse and neglect. States were also mandated to develop policies, procedures, definitions, and laws that addressed maltreatment. In October of 1996, CAPTA was reauthorized and amended to more clearly define circumstances regarding the withholding of medical treatment in life-threatening situations. In 2003, states were required to expand their services to include adoption, foster care, abandoned infants, and family violence prevention. CAPTA, which is Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, that's one of those acronyms, was last reauthorized and amended in December of 2010. Any child under 18 years of age is protected by law from harm, exploitation, and inadequate care. Okay, statistics. I told you I like statistics, but only reading them and learning them. I don't like dealing with the mathematical aspect of statistics, but it is pretty, interesting to hear statistics. All right, there's a lot of them, and I didn't do these in any particular order. I just kind of, as I came to them in the book, I just kind of pulled it out. But 5 children die every day from child abuse. Another source said 4 children per day. I'm thinking the book said 5 and the PowerPoint said 4, or vice versa. All of my information is coming from the textbook. So if I created a reference or a citation, I would write the textbook down. And you can do that too on your project that you do for this particular topic. You're going to be making a PowerPoint, and while I'm talking about that, if you want to do something other than a PowerPoint, please see me. You know, I will, within reason, give you an opportunity to do something other than a PowerPoint if you would like to, but it's got to contain. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Just see me if you want to do something different. The preferred method is a PowerPoint, because you all need to learn how to use PowerPoint. It is a wonderful program. Again, back to statistics. More than 6 cases per minute, 50% are under 5 years of age. 4 out of 5 children are abused by at least one parent, and it's more often the mother. May also be other family members or relative, babysitter, or neighbor. Abusive parents come from all levels of social, emotional, educational, ethnic, religious, and occupational backgrounds. Abusive parents live in rural areas, small towns, and large towns. 4 out of 5 adult perpetrators were victims themselves, which means they were abused by at least one parent themselves. An adult may lack the knowledge about raising children and the development of children, which therefore causes stress for them, and they react by being abusive, or they can react by being that way. Approximately 3 million confirmed cases of child maltreatment in the United States in 2011. Emergency rooms treat 84 abused children every hour. The lifetime cost estimated based on 1,740 confirmed cases is $124 million per year, or $210,012 per victim. I hope I read that number right. Actual incidence is estimated to be greater than reported, because many cases go unreported. Approximately 230,000 children are placed in foster care every year. Victimized children are more likely to be a greater risk of performing poorly in school, engage in drug abuse, juvenile crime, become pregnant, experience depression, and other mental health disorders. And also, they are more likely to commit suicide as they grow up. Witnessing or experiencing violent acts affects a child's brain development. It wires it for survival rather than learning. Again, it wires the brain for survival rather than learning. So think about it. A child comes to your class and they're being abused at home. Are they going to be focused on learning? No, no. They're going to be focused on surviving. Okay, the next part of I'm going to break this down into another YouTube section. I'm going to talk about discipline and punishment and what's the difference between the two, because there is a difference. And then I will finish up hopefully in another YouTube video. So stay tuned for part 2.